Welcome, deep divers. Have you ever tried to truly grasp the sheer volume and the diverse impact of legislative changes that land on the books?
It's a lot.
It's oft overwhelming, right? Like trying to drink from a fire hose of information. And it's easy to miss the forest for the trees. How often do we really take the time to understand the incredible breadth of what a single massive piece of legislation can cover?
Mm, hardly ever, probably.
Exactly. It touches everything, often in ways you'd never expect. Today, we're taking on that monumental challenge. We're embarking on a comprehensive deep dive into Public Law 11921, a sweeping legislative omnibus enacted on July 4, 2025.
Yeah, this thing is huge.
It isn't just one bill, it's a colossal collection of policy shifts, funding allocations, and regulatory adjustments that span the spectrum of American life, from national defense and your grocery budget to the cutting edge of space exploration and the very structure of your student loans. Our mission today is to cut through the legal jargon and the thousands of words in this document to uncover the most important nuggets of knowledge for you.
Kind of a shortcut?
Think of this as your essential shortcut, yeah, to understanding the sweeping changes that are about to impact various facets of life and industry across the United States. We'll explore the key provisions, their practical implications, and what they truly mean for individuals, businesses, and government agencies. You're going to hear some surprising facts and policy shifts you might not have anticipated. We'll navigate through significant reforms in agriculture, national security, healthcare, taxation, energy policy, education, border security, and even environmental regulations. Okay, let's unpack this.
It truly is an immense undertaking, and what stands out immediately is the sheer scope. I mean, this law profoundly underscores how interconnected, seemingly disparate areas of policy truly are.
Right.
We're talking about a legislative document that actively reshapes a vast array of federal programs and funding streams, often with very specific, detailed instructions that can have ripple effects for years, years to come.
That's a powerful way to frame it. So let's begin with something that has monumental implications for global strategy and technological advancement, bolstering national security and strategic capabilities. This law makes some truly significant investments in enhancing the Department of Defense's resources. What's the biggest picture for our listeners here?
Well, the overarching theme is a strong, multifaceted commitment to defense modernization and readiness. You see substantial appropriations earmarked for improving the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command.
Okay, Indo-Pacific focus.
Right, explicitly mentioning border support and counter-drug missions, too. This really highlights a clear strategic regional focus, indicating sustained attention and investment in that critical part of the world, reflecting, current geopolitical realities.
And it's not just about regional readiness, but cutting-edge technology too, right? The law allocates a massive $2.2 billion for accelerating hypersonic defense systems.
$2.2 billion. That's a huge investment in technology that's still considered, very new and highly advanced.
So how does that fit into this broader approach? Is it just about hypersonics or?
Well, it truly is a significant figure, but what's fascinating here is the comprehensive approach. It's not just hypersonics. Beyond that, we're seeing billions more, specifically $800 million dedicated to accelerating the development and deployment of next-generation intercontinental ballistic missile defense systems.
Okay, ICBMs too.
Yeah, and that speaks to a focus on, advanced long-range defense capabilities.
Yeah.
Furthermore, nearly $2 billion, 1.975 billion to be precise, is allocated for improved ground-based missile defense radars,
Wow.
significantly enhancing our detection and tracking. And for a very specific high-cost item, $530 million is dedicated to the design and construction of a Missile Defense Agency Missile Instrumentation Range safety ship.
A safety ship.
Okay.
Yeah.
The clear takeaway is a broad, significant push for advanced long-range capabilities across the board, not just in one single area.
It sounds like a broad modernization effort then, not just for developing new systems, but also for, maintaining and improving existing ones. Is that right?
Precisely. It's not just about shiny new tech. There's a huge emphasis on the backbone of our defense. We see efforts to strengthen missile production and maintenance.
Like what specifically?
For example, $93 million is appropriated for replacing Navy long-range air and missile defense interceptors essential for current operational readiness. There's also a focus on supply chain resilience,
Ah, okay.
with $100 million for developing a second solid rocket motor source for Navy air defense and anti-ship missiles,
Hmm.
which is, a smart move to de-risk our defense manufacturing.
Yeah, definitely.
We also see capacity expansion, with $65 million for Missile Defense Agency long-range anti-ballistic missiles and $225 million for Navy air defense and anti-ship missiles.
Hmm.
And crucially, $103.3 million is set aside for expanding depot-level maintenance facilities for Navy long-range air and missile defense interceptors.
Okay, so keeping the current stuff running well.
Exactly, ensuring the longevity and readiness of these vital assets. It's about staying ahead, but also shoring up the foundations.
Right, the foundations.
Yeah.
So bolstering the industrial base seems to be a theme then. What about advanced military technologies and manufacturing more broadly?
Absolutely. There's $200 million for the development, production, and integration of ship-based counter-unmanned aerial systems, or CUAS.
Counter-drone tech. Important.
Very. Directly addressing modern drone threats. Complementing the defense efforts, $400 million is allocated for accelerating hypersonic strike programs.
So offense and defense on hypersonics?
Right. The Army's medium-range air and missile defense also receives a boost with $167 million for additional launchers and $200 million for accelerating interceptors. An overarching investment of $500 million is directed towards expanding defense advanced manufacturing techniques,
Okay.
which is a key investment in the underlying industrial base itself. Finally, a unique allocation of $1 million is for the establishment of the Joint Energetics Transition Office.
Joint energetics.
Yeah.
What's that about?
It indicates a focus on new energy sources for defense applications. Interesting little detail there.
That's a huge list of specific investments, but here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Section 2005 directly appropriates funds for fiscal year 2025 to scale low-cost weapons into production. What does this mean for the future of defense procurement, especially given all the high-tech, high-cost investments we just discussed?
This is a critical strategic shift, and it suggests a recognition that future conflicts may require not just highly sophisticated, expensive systems, but also a sheer quantity of more affordable, mass-producible options.
Balancing quality and quantity.
Exactly. It's about balancing quality with quantity and cost-effectiveness. This could be about deterring smaller, more numerous threats, or it could be a preparedness measure for potential large-scale conflicts where attrition rates might be higher, necessitating more readily available weaponry.
So planning for different kinds of fights.
Right. It's a pragmatic pivot in defense strategy, acknowledging different kinds of threats.
That's a fascinating insight, acknowledging that the future of conflict may not just be about the most advanced, but also the most, well, abundant. And beyond weapons, there's also significant funding for infrastructure and vehicle modernization.
Correct. The law includes funding for various vehicle upgrades, like $63 million for advanced rotary wing engines, $241 million for Marine Corps amphibious vehicles, and $250 million for Army-tracked combat transport vehicle.
Keeping the forces mobile.
And maintained. There's a substantial $1.5 billion allocated for increased depot and shipyard maintenance activities, emphasizing the sustainment of existing assets. The Air Force also receives $2.5 billion for facility sustainment, restoration, and modernization.
Big numbers for upkeep.
Yeah, this broad investment underscores a comprehensive effort to ensure all aspects of the military, from personnel to high-tech systems and the infrastructure that supports them, are modernized and maintained.
Now let's pivot from terrestrial defense to the stars. This law also includes significant provisions for space exploration and infrastructure. What's the ambition here? What are we seeing?
Well, Section 4005 makes notable appropriations for NASA's ambitious space missions, primarily signaling a continued long-term commitment to lunar and deep space exploration.
So Artemis is still full steam ahead.
Seems like it. Specifically, $20 million is allocated for the continued procurement of the multi-purpose crew vehicle Orion for Artemis IV and subsequent missions, with an obligation deadline of fiscal year 2026. This clearly underscores a long-term commitment to human spaceflight beyond low Earth orbit.
And the International Space Station isn't being forgotten, which is crucial for ongoing research, right? I mean, that's still up there.
Not at all. There's a robust $1.25 billion for ISS operations and meeting statutory requirements, with specific annual obligations of $250 million for each fiscal year from 2025 through 2029.
Okay, so stable funding for the ISS for a while.
Right. This is critical for maintaining a human presence in low Earth orbit and continuing the valuable scientific work conducted there, even as NASA plans for its eventual, decommissioning down the road.
Beyond the missions themselves, there are some very specific infrastructure investments listed. What stands out about where these funds are going? Is it just general upgrades or...
What's fascinating here is the granular detail. Where these funds are being directed for infrastructure projects at key NASA centers by fiscal year 2026. Kennedy Space Center in Florida receives $250 million.
Okay, I see.
Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas gets $300 million.
Houston gets the biggest chunk.
Yeah. George C. Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama is allocated $100 million, and the Michaud Assembly Facility in New Orleans, Louisiana receives $30 million.
So spreading it around, but focused.
Exactly. This signals a clear strategic focus on maintaining and upgrading the physical backbone of the U.S. space program, ensuring these facilities can support not just current but future ambitious missions for decades.
And there's a unique provision to connect the public with space history, too. That seems like a nice touch.
Yes. The law mandates the transfer of certain flown space vehicles that have carried astronauts for public exhibition within their respective metropolitan statistical areas within 18 months of enactment.
So people can see the actual spacecraft nearby.
Yeah, it's a nice touch, giving the public a direct, tangible connection to these historical achievements, maybe inspiring the next generation.
Shifting gears slightly within the space sector, the law also introduces space launch and re-entry licensing user fees in Section 4004. How will this change impact the commercial space industry? Is this a big deal for them?
It could be. This introduces a new fee structure where the Secretary of Transportation is now authorized to collect user fees for space launch and re-entry licensing and permitting.
Okay, so companies pay for their licenses now.
Essentially, yes. These fees will be deposited into a new Office of Commercial Space Transportation Launch and Reentry Licensing and Permitting Fund. The implication for the industry is that it shifts some of the cost burden for regulatory oversight from taxpayers directly to the commercial space industry.
Making them pay their own way, so to speak.
Kind of. It's a move towards making the industry more self-sustaining in terms of its regulatory costs. It could potentially encourage greater efficiency, but it also adds a new line item, a new cost, for commercial launch providers.
All right, let's move on to a totally different but equally impactful area, reforming social safety nets and healthcare. This section has, well, a lot of adjustments, starting with Medicaid. What are the key initial changes here?
This is a complex area, definitely. And one of the most immediate points that stands out is the Medicaid program adjustments, particularly the moratoriums. There's a significant moratorium till September 30, 2034.
Wait, 2034? That's a decade.
Exactly. A decade-long moratorium on implementing specific rules related to Medicaid eligibility, enrollment processes as per Section 710101, and also long-term care facility staffing standards under Section 7101.
A 10-year pause is quite striking. What's the strategic implication of these prolonged moratoriums? Why so long?
What's truly insightful here is how long these moratoriums are. A decade-long pause really freezes certain aspects of these regulations, delaying significant changes in how states manage Medicaid enrollment and how nursing homes are regulated.
So, stability? Maybe, but delaying reforms?
Right. This prolonged delay could have wide-ranging effects on both access to care and the operational requirements for facilities. It gives states and providers more certainty, perhaps, but potentially holds back intended reforms for a considerable period. Alongside these moratoriums, the law also focuses on preventing wasteful spending. States are now required to use the Death Master File, or DMF,
The Death Master File.
to identify deceased individuals enrolled in Medicaid and deceased providers or suppliers. This information must be treated as factual, leading to disenrollment, with an immediate re-enrollment if an error is found.
So how will this translate on the ground? This clearly aims to reduce erroneous payments to deceased individuals, which is, a common target for fraud prevention.
Yes.
But the safeguard for individuals wrongly identified is also important, preventing undue hardship if a mistake is made.
Exactly, striking a balance between fiscal responsibility and protecting beneficiaries. And to reinforce this, Section 71106 introduces a payment reduction mechanism for states with high payment error rates in Medicaid, potentially capping waivers for excessive errors.
Okay, hitting states in the wallet if they make too many mistakes.
Precisely. A particularly sensitive provision is Section 71113, which states that no federal direct spending funds under Medicaid can be used to pay prohibited entities for items and services furnished during a one-year period beginning after enactment.
Now, this definition of prohibited entity is crucial. Can you clarify that for our listeners without, taking a side or expressing a personal view? We just want to understand what the law says.
Certainly. The law defines a prohibited entity as a 501c3 organization that is primarily engaged in family planning, reproductive health, and related medical care.
Okay, specific focus there.
Receives more than 15% of its funds from federal, state, or local governments, and has more than $10 million in annual revenues.
So it's a three-part test: activity, government funding percentage, and revenue size.
Correct. This specific definition targets a very particular type of organization based on those criteria. The practical implication is that it could significantly impact the funding of organizations that meet these stringent criteria, affecting their ability to provide the services they currently offer under Medicaid.
Beyond the prohibited entities provision, there are also changes to how states manage funding through provider taxes and state-directed payments. What's happening there?
Yes, Section 711.115 alters the hold harmless provision for broad-based healthcare-related taxes. It implements a gradual reduction in the applicable percentage from 5.5% in fiscal year 2028 down to 3.5% in fiscal year 2032 and beyond for certain expansion states.
So states might have to adjust how they raise their share of Medicaid funds.
Potentially, yes. Additionally, Section 7116 introduces new limits on state-directed payments effective January 1st, 2028, based on Medicare payment rates for states that haven't received prior approval by May 1st, 2025.
More guardrails on state financing.
Right. These are technical but significant shifts in how states can structure their Medicaid financing, potentially forcing some states to reevaluate their funding models.
Let's move to another significant change that impacts individual eligibility: increasing personal accountability through community engagement requirements. Section 711.199 on community engagement requirements for Medicaid really jumps out at me. When you tie eligibility to activities beyond just medical or financial need, what do you see as the most significant implications, both for access to care and also for the administrative burden on states?
This provision fundamentally redefines a component of Medicaid eligibility, moving it beyond purely financial and medical criteria to include, well, behavioral requirements. It stipulates that states shall require applicable individuals to demonstrate community engagement.
Work requirements, essentially.
Yeah.
Or broader.
Broader than just work. Demonstrate community engagement for 1 to 3 consecutive months before applying for Medicaid or continuously after enrollment. The implications are potentially far-reaching. How so? Well, proponents might argue it promotes self-sufficiency and, responsible engagement. Critics, on the other hand, would likely raise concerns about increased administrative complexity for states,
Yeah, tracking all this.
potential for wrongful denials, and reduced access to essential health care for vulnerable populations who may struggle to meet the engagement hours due to systemic barriers, even if they don't fall neatly into an exempted category. It's a very significant policy change with potential for both intended and unintended consequences.
And what exactly counts as community engagement here? Does the law provide clarity on that? Is it just working?
It does provide some clarity. The law defines it quite broadly, actually. It includes employment, job search activities,
Yeah.
education, vocational training, community service, or even caregiving.
Okay, so several options.
Yes, but importantly, it specifies that the engagement should not be less than 80 hours per month.
80 hours a month, that's what, 20 hours a week, roughly? That's a significant time commitment.
That is.
And are there exemptions for those who might struggle to meet that requirement, say, someone with a disability or a new mother?
Yes, there are mandatory exemptions for pregnant women, children, individuals with disabilities, caregivers for disabled individuals, the medically frail, and victims of domestic violence.
Okay, so some key groups are protected.
Right. States may also exempt individuals in emergency or disaster areas or areas with high unemployment, specifically at or above 8%, or 1.5 times the national rate.
Giving states some flexibility there.
A bit. States are tasked with establishing verification procedures, prioritizing ex parte, meaning non-applicant-initiated checks, and providing clear notices. Non-compliant individuals will be ineligible or disenrolled.
And how are states supposed to manage all this? Is there funding?
To support states in implementing this, $200 million is appropriated for fiscal year 2026 for grants. It's clear that this is a detailed and potentially complex program to administer.
And as part of these adjustments, there's also a change to cost sharing for some people on Medicaid. What's the effect there?
Yes, beginning October 1st, 2028, states shall impose cost sharing, meaning copays or similar, greater than $0 for certain care for specified expansion individuals.
So some people will have to pay something out of pocket?
Potentially. However, there are important exclusions. No cost sharing for primary care, mental health services, substance use disorder services, and services from federally qualified health centers, certified community behavioral health clinics, and rural health clinics.
Ah, so protecting access to those core services.
Exactly. It could impact the out-of-pocket costs for a significant population, but it also aims to protect access to crucial basic and behavioral health services, showing a perhaps nuanced approach.
Moving on, the law also looks at expanding access to care in other ways, specifically through home and community-based services, or HCBS. What are the key adjustments here, giving people care outside of institutions?
That seems to be the goal. Section 711121 makes certain adjustments here. Beginning July 1st, 2028, the Secretary may approve standalone waivers to extend HCBS coverage for an initial term of 3 years, renewable for 5 years,
So, making it easier to get these waivers approved.
potentially. But to receive approval, states must meet specific data reporting criteria, demonstrate adequate provider networks, ensure care quality, and avoid prohibited entities in specific HCBS contexts, mirroring the broader Medicaid restrictions we discussed.
Okay, so strings attached to ensure quality.
Right. This is designed to ensure accountability and quality for these expanded services, aiming to provide more care in less restrictive, community-based settings.
Now, let's look at Medicare program updates. What's changing in terms of who's eligible for Medicare? Is that changing too?
A key change under Section 7122 is the limiting of Medicare coverage for certain individuals. Eligibility is now restricted to U.S. citizens, certain permanent residents, specifically green card holders for 5 or more years, specific refugees and asylees, and Compact of Free Association residents.
So, tightening eligibility based on immigration status.
It seems so. This change applies 18 months after enactment for existing beneficiaries, requiring a review by the Commissioner of Social Security within 1 year to identify and notify affected individuals.
So, people currently on Medicare might lose it?
This could impact non-citizen residents currently receiving Medicare, yes, leading to potential disenrollment for those who don't meet the new criteria. It's a significant tightening of eligibility for a major federal program.
And in a more immediate measure for providers, anything there?
Section 71202 provides a temporary payment increase under the Medicare physician fee schedule to account for exceptional circumstances.
Like inflation or workforce issues.
Possibly. It's framed as a short-term measure to support providers, likely in response to current economic pressures or service demands.
And then there's an interesting expansion related to orphan drugs. What caught your eye there? Seems technical.
What's truly insightful here is Section 71203, which expands and clarifies the exclusion for orphan drugs under the Drug Price Negotiation Program. The previous rule allowed for one rare disease or condition exclusion.
Just one.
Right, but this amendment expands that. This could further incentivize drug development for treatments targeting multiple rare conditions, potentially bringing more options to patients by making R&D in these areas more financially attractive for pharmaceutical companies.
So potentially good news for rare disease research.
Could be.
Beyond direct program changes, there are also significant health tax provisions that could impact many households, particularly those getting insurance through the marketplaces.
Yes, Section 71301 and 71302 introduce premium tax credit limitations, permitting credits only for certain individuals and disallowing them during periods of Medicaid ineligibility due to alien status.
Tying marketplace subsidies to immigration status again?
It appears so. Sections 71303 and 71304 also introduce verification requirements for eligibility and disallow credits for certain coverage enrolled in during special enrollment periods, which aims to prevent fraud and abuse,
Tightening up the rules.
and potentially impacting people who need to get back subsidies. Section 71305 eliminates the limitation on recapture of advance payment of premium tax credit,
Meaning?
meaning taxpayers may owe back more of the subsidy if their income changes throughout the year and they underestimated it initially. This could be a surprise for some at tax time.
Oof. Okay. On the flip side, some provisions are aimed at enhancing choice for patients. Can you elaborate on those? What's positive here?
Indeed. Section 71306 permanently extends the safe harbor for the absence of a deductible for telehealth services.
Telehealth gets a permanent boost. That's big.
It is a significant move to ensure continued access to telehealth without additional cost burdens, reflecting the growing importance and acceptance of virtual care. Section 71307 also allows bronze and catastrophic plans in connection with health savings accounts, or HSAs.
Lower premium plans with HSAs.
Right, expanding options for lower premium, higher deductible health plans for consumers seeking more affordable insurance options if they're comfortable with higher out-of-pocket costs.
And what about direct primary care service arrangements? This is a model that's been gaining traction where you pay a monthly fee directly to your doctor. How does the law address it?
Section 71308 addresses the tax treatment of direct primary care, or DPC, service arrangements. It sets a monthly fee limitation of $150 or $300 for arrangements covering more than one individual.
So what's the practical impact here? Does this help or hinder DPC?
It seems intended to help. This provision formalizes the tax treatment of DPC, potentially boosting its adoption by clarifying its status and making it a more accessible option for individuals seeking this model of care. It provides regulatory clarity that can reduce uncertainty for both providers and patients, maybe fostering growth in this alternative care model.
Finally, under this large healthcare section, we have protecting rural hospitals and providers in Section 71201. This establishes a rural health transformation program through fiscal year 2030. Rural healthcare is a huge challenge. What's the overall goal here?
The overarching goal is clearly to improve access to care in rural areas, which is, as you said, a critical and ongoing challenge. States can apply with a detailed transformation plan,
What kind plan?
focusing on improving access, promoting innovative models, prioritizing data and technology solutions, and managing financial solvency. Allotments are provided for eligible states, with 50% distributed equally and 50% based on factors like rural population percentage and the proportion of rural health facilities.
And do states have to match the funds?
Crucially, no matching payment is required from states, which is a significant relief for state budgets. The key focus areas include recruiting and retaining clinical workforce talent.
Getting doctors and nurses out there.
Exactly, with commitments to serve rural communities for a minimum of 5 years. And promoting technology-driven solutions like remote monitoring, robotics, and artificial intelligence. The program also specifically addresses causes of rural hospital closures.
This feels like a major pivot, doesn't it? Or at least a serious attempt. It's a significant investment and strategic framework to combat the ongoing crisis of rural healthcare access, focusing on both infrastructure and a stable workforce. It's a comprehensive attempt to reverse a troubling trend.
It's definitely a proactive and targeted approach. Many rural hospitals are vital community anchors, and their closure has cascading effects on local economies and health outcomes. This program aims to build resilience through a combination of financial support, workforce development, and technological adoption, trying to stabilize a vulnerable part of our healthcare system.
All right, let's shift our focus now to shaping the American economy. Tax, trade, and business incentives. This is where we see some direct impacts on everyday finances and the broader economic landscape. Starting with financial market oversight and consumer protection, what's in this bucket?
This section includes several key provisions. Section 30001 sets a funding cap for the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, the BCFP.
The Consumer Watchdog Agency.
Right, which could impact its operational capacity. Then, Section 30002 rescinds funds for the Green and Resilient Retrofit Program for multifamily housing, representing a shift in housing investment priorities.
Pulling back funding there. Okay.
Section 3003 amends the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC Reserve Fund, making it available for whistleblower awards without further appropriation or fiscal year limitation.
Making it easier to pay whistleblowers. Essentially, yes. It streamlines the process for rewarding whistleblowers, which can be critical for uncovering financial misconduct and maintaining market integrity. Finally, Section 3004 allocates funds for the Defense Production Act, a tool often used to compel industries to produce goods for national defense, reflecting its continued importance in national strategy. Now, let's talk about some direct benefits to individuals. The law dedicates a chapter to delivering on presidential priorities to provide new middle-class tax relief. What are the key provisions here? Sounds good on the surface.
This includes some very direct but temporary tax breaks. Section 70201 introduces a no tax on tips deduction.
No tax on tips for who?
For qualified tips received by individuals in specific occupations like restaurants, hotels, taxi rideshare services, barbershops, beauty salons, and baggage handlers.
Okay, service industry focus? Are there limits?
Yes, this deduction is limited to $2,500 or $5,000 for joint filers, and it's phased out based on adjusted gross income, or AGI, starting at $75,000 for individuals and $150,000 for joint filers.
And you said temporary.
Right. It's also a temporary measure, terminating after December 31st, 2028.
So beyond the immediate relief, what's the strategic thinking behind this no tax on tips and its expiration date? Is it just a short-term boost?
What's truly insightful here is that this looks like a targeted temporary stimulus designed to put more cash in the pockets of service workers in the short term. By having an expiration date, it signals it's probably not a permanent structural change to the tax code or the industry.
Avoids a long-term budget hit.
Right. It avoids the long-term budget impact of a permanent cut, but could create a cliff effect for workers if it's not renewed, which is, a common political play. Similarly, Section 70202 introduces a no tax on overtime deduction for qualified overtime compensation.
Tax break for working extra hours.
Seems like it. With a limit of $12,500 or $25,000 for joint filers, phased out based on AGI starting at $150,000 for individuals and $300,000 for joint filers. This also terminates after December 31st, 2028.
Same expiration date.
Yep. This is a direct incentive for working overtime hours, potentially boosting labor supply in certain sectors, but making those extra hours more financially attractive. Another short-term stimulus, really.
And there's even a tax break for car loan interest. What are the specifics there? Seems odd.
Section 7203 introduces a no tax on car loan interest. This is a new deduction for interest paid on specified passenger vehicle loans, capped at $1,000 per year or $2,000 for joint filers.
Any car.
No, the loan must be for a new or used car, specifically not a luxury car acquired after the date of enactment. And the loan itself must also originate after that date.
And temporary, too, I bet.
You got it. This deduction also terminates after December 31st, 2028. This is a targeted tax break for vehicle owners, intended to provide some financial relief during a period of potentially higher interest rates and vehicle costs, but it's also a temporary measure similar to the other two.
Now, one of the most unique provisions in this section is Section 70-04, the Trump Accounts and Contribution Pilot Program. This sounds like a completely new type of investment vehicle. What's the goal here? What are these?
It's definitely new. This establishes a new program for eligible individuals, specifically those under 18 with a Social Security number, to establish Trump accounts.
Okay.
What's truly insightful here is that this program seems designed to encourage early-age investment in broad market indices. The eligible investments are quite specific, limited to mutual funds or exchange-traded funds that track qualified indexes, like the S&P 500.
So passive index investing for kids.
Right. They cannot use leverage, must have low fees, a maximum of 0.1% annually, and cannot invest in industry or sector-specific indexes. It aims to democratize early-stage market participation and teach young people about broad-based investing, rather than speculative or high-risk ventures with specific rules on funding and management.
And how are these accounts funded, and what are the contribution distribution rules? Can parents just dump money in?
They are funded by qualified rollover contributions or general funding contributions from specified entities. There's no deduction for contributions made before the beneficiary turns 18. Contribution limits apply, adjusted for inflation, starting at $5,000 in 2026.
And getting money out.
Generally, no distributions are allowed before age 18, with exceptions for death, disability, or qualified ABLE rollover contributions. Trustees are required to report to the secretary and the beneficiary. To fund the necessary administrative amendments, $410 million is appropriated to the Treasury, available until September 30, 2034.
Okay. Long funding tail for that program.
Yeah, it's a new type of investment vehicle with distinct characteristics that could have long-term implications for financial literacy and wealth building from a young age.
Moving on to establishing certainty and competitiveness for American job creators. Sounds like business tax changes. What's happening with bonus depreciation, which has been a major incentive for businesses to invest?
Well, it's changing significantly. Section 70301 modifies the 100% bonus depreciation for qualified property. For the first taxable year ending after January 19, 2025, it's reduced to 40% for most property and 60% for certain specified plants.
So a big cut in that immediate write-off.
Yes. This is a significant change, phasing out the immediate expensing that businesses have grown accustomed to, which could impact capital expenditure decisions and maybe slow down some business investments.
But there's a positive shift for research and experimental expenditures, right? This seems like a counterbalance, maybe?
Absolutely, and this is a major win for U.S. businesses doing R&D. Section 70302 allows for the full expensing of domestic research or experimental expenditures rather than requiring capitalization and amortization over time.
So they can deduct R&D costs immediately again.
Yes, this means companies can immediately deduct these costs. What's the real-world effect here? This provides an immediate tax benefit that actively encourages innovation and domestic investment, directly enhancing cash flow for R&D-intensive companies.
Right.
It provides a stronger incentive for them to conduct that research domestically.
When does that kick in?
It's effective for taxable years beginning after December 34, 2024.
And some other targeted business adjustments. Anything else significant here?
Section 70303 also modifies the limitation on business interest deductions, extending a previous rule and expanding the definition of floor plan financing to include certain trailers and campers, offering some relief to those specific industries. Sort of technical, but helpful for them.
And what about employees? The paid family and medical leave credit is being extended and enhanced. What are the key changes here? How does this help workers get paid leave?
Yes, Section 70304 does just that significantly. Employers can now elect to base the credit on either wages paid to qualifying employees or premiums paid for an insurance policy for paid leave.
Gives employers options.
Right. The definition of a qualifying employee has also been expanded to include customary employment of at least 20 hours per week, and for the insurance-based credit, leave is determined without regard to whether leave is actually taken. State or local mandated or paid leave is generally included in determining the leave amount, but not the credit amount. What's the connection to the bigger picture? This incentivizes employers to offer paid leave, a benefit that impacts employee well-being, retention, and the overall quality of the workforce.
So pushing employers towards offering it without a federal mandate.
Exactly. It's a significant push to increase access to paid leave without directly mandating it at the federal level, relying instead on tax incentives.
And it seems there's a specific push for manufacturing investment, a new credit.
This feels like a major pivot, doesn't it? Or maybe reinforcing a trend. Section 70305 introduces a new manufacturing investment credit for qualified investments in manufacturing property, placed in service before January 1st, 2031, for use in a qualified production activity.
What counts as qualified production?
It refers to the manufacture, production, growth, or extraction of tangible personal property within the United States. A qualified product is tangible personal property that is not a food or beverage prepared and sold in the same retail building.
Okay, broad manufacturing definition.
Yes. What makes this truly stand out is that this is a targeted incentive to boost domestic manufacturing, especially relevant for supply chain resilience and bringing production back to the U.S. It's a clear industrial policy aimed at strengthening the domestic manufacturing base.
Then we move into some highly technical but significant international tax reforms. What's the overall direction of these changes? Are we making it harder or easier for multinationals?
The direction here is generally towards simplifying and refining how multinational corporations are taxed on their foreign earnings. Maybe a bit of both, depending on the company. Section 70323, for example, repeals the Global Intangible Low-Taxed Income, or GILTI regime.
Repealing GILTI. That was a big deal a few years ago.
It was. For our listeners, GILTI was essentially a minimum tax on certain foreign profits of U.S. multinationals. This law replaces it with net CFC-tested income, which, put simply, redefines exactly which foreign earnings are subject to this tax.
So, changing the formula for taxing foreign profits?
Right. This is a significant, complex shift that could alter how multinational corporations are taxed on their foreign earnings, potentially simplifying or changing their overall tax liabilities. It's one accountants will be digging into.
And there are other adjustments to corporate structures affecting international tax.
Yes. Section 70351 makes permanent the look-through rule for related controlled foreign corporations, which simplifies tax planning for certain international corporate structures. Section 70352 repeals the election for a one-month deferral in determining the taxable year of specified foreign corporations, further simplifying tax year alignment.
Little technical tweaks.
Yeah, but they add up. Section 70353 restores limitations on downward attribution of stock ownership in applying constructive ownership rules, impacting how foreign corporations are classified and taxed. Finally, Section 70354 introduces new definitions and rules for foreign-controlled United States shareholders and foreign-controlled foreign corporations, applying existing tax provisions, like the new net CFC-tested income, to them under specific conditions.
So, a lot of complex changes for international business tax.
Collectively, these reshape the international tax landscape for U.S. companies, aiming for more predictability and less complexity in certain areas, but also potentially changing who pays what.
Now let's explore permanent investments in students and reforms to tax-exempt institutions, starting with a new tax credit for contributions to scholarship-granting organizations. How will this work? Supporting private school scholarships.
It seems aimed that way. Section 70411 introduces a new tax credit for individuals contributing to qualified scholarship granting organizations, or SGOs, for elementary and secondary education.
What makes an organization qualified?
To qualify, organizations must provide scholarships to 10 or more students who do not all attend the same school, spend at least 90% of their income on scholarships, prioritize returning students and siblings, and verify household income. Crucially, they cannot earmark contributions for specific students.
So promoting broad access, not just picking specific kids.
That seems to be the intent. It promotes broad access to educational scholarships without undue influence.
And there's a major expansion for 529 accounts. This sounds like it could be really impactful for families saving for education.
Yes, Section 7041 significantly expands the definition of qualified education expenses for 529 plans. This now includes elementary and secondary tuition.
K-12 tuition from a 529, wow.
Yes, as well as costs for recognized post-secondary credential programs and continuing education.
So trade schools, certificates too.
Right. What's the practical impact here? This makes 529 plans far more flexible, allowing them to be used for K-12 tuition and a wider range of workforce development programs beyond traditional higher education degrees.
Adapting to different education paths.
Exactly. It essentially broadens the utility of these tax-advantaged savings accounts, aligning them with diverse educational pathways from kindergarten through career upskilling.
And Section 70415 modifies the excise tax on investment income of private colleges and universities. What's the underlying intent there? Taxing endowments more.
What's truly insightful here is that the modification specifically includes interest income from student loans made by the institution when determining net investment income for the excise tax.
Ah, so if the university makes money lending to its own students, that income counts towards the tax.
Precisely. This prevents institutions from potentially avoiding the tax by structuring student loans as an investment, ensuring they contribute to the tax base as intended. It closes a potential loophole and ensures a level playing field for how investment income is calculated for that tax.
Next up, we have some significant changes to community development and housing incentives. This includes qualified opportunity zones. Those were supposed to spur investment in low-income areas. What are the key modifications? Are they tweaking the program?
This feels like a significant refinement of a program that has seen, let's say, mixed results reported. Section 7041 and 7041 need bring some significant modifications to the Opportunity Zone program. The law allows the Secretary to designate up to an additional 5,000 qualified opportunity zones based on specific low-income criteria. The deferral period for capital gains invested in opportunity funds is now limited to 5 years after the investment.
Shorter deferral period.
Okay.
Which is a key change. Investments held for 5 years will receive a 10% basis increase or 30% for qualified rural opportunity funds.
So still a benefit for holding, but maybe less than before for some.
Right. And perhaps most importantly, there are enhanced reporting requirements for opportunity funds.
More transparency. What do they have to report?
This includes reporting on NAICS codes of investments, employment impact, residential units created, and a comparison of economic indicators like unemployment, poverty, and new business starts for the zones.
Measuring the actual impact. Exactly. What makes this truly stand out is that these new reporting and outcome measurement requirements signal a greater focus on accountability and measuring the actual impact of these investments on communities, rather than just tracking investment inflows. It's a move towards ensuring these investments are genuinely translating into measurable community benefits.
And a permanent enhancement for the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, or LIHTC. That sounds like a big deal for affordable housing. That program is critical.
It absolutely is. Section 70422 permanently enhances the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, or LIHTC, by increasing the state housing credit ceiling permanently for calendar years after 2025 and modifying the tax-exempt bond financing requirement.
What's the practical impact here? Just more money for affordable housing?
Pretty much. This provides a significant long-term boost to affordable housing development, making it easier to finance such projects and addressing a critical need across the country by creating a more stable and robust incentive for affordable housing. More certainty for developers.
There are also other financial and tax adjustments, including several changes to how charitable contributions are deducted, adjusting carry-forward rules, and coordinating with other limitations under Sections 70423 through 70426, kind of technical stuff, and a permanent change for the distilled spirits industry.
Yes, Section 70427 permanently increases the limitation on the cover-over of tax on distilled spirits to $13.25 per proof gallon, effective after December 31st, 2025. This provides a long-term benefit and certainty to that industry, likely reducing their effective tax rate.
And there's a unique provision for remote native villages in Alaska. What's the goal there?
Section 70428 treats activities related to Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands fisheries as substantially related to the tax-exempt purpose of specific native entities. This encourages economic development in these remote regions by clarifying their tax status, which is vital for these communities. Section 70431 also expands the qualified small business stock gain exclusion through a phased-in higher exclusion.
More tax breaks for investing in small businesses.
Yes, and encouraging holding on to those investments longer. For stock acquired after the applicable date, the exclusion is 50% for 3 years, 75% for 4 years, and 100% for 5 or more years.
Bigger break the longer you hold it.
Right. The dollar limit for exclusion for stock acquired on or before the applicable date remains $10 million. But for stock acquired after, it is increased annually, adjusted for inflation, reaching $13.5 million in 2026. Right. What's the real-world effect here? This is a powerful incentive for investment in small businesses, especially encouraging longer holding periods by rewarding sustained growth rather than quick exits.
However, a provision with potentially broader impact for many online sellers is Section 70433, which repeals the $20,200 transactions de minimis reporting rule for third-party network transactions. Think platforms like PayPal, Venmo, or Etsy. What's the impact of repealing that minimum threshold? This seems like a big deal for the gig economy and small online sellers.
It is a big deal. This will significantly increase the reporting burden for small businesses and individuals selling goods and services online, as many more transactions, even small ones, will now likely trigger a 1099-K form reported to the IRS, regardless of the individual volume.
So more paperwork and tax tracking for casual sellers.
Definitely. This could also affect backup withholding, meaning a larger pool of individuals and small entities will be subject to these reporting requirements, demanding more meticulous record keeping.
And finally, under this section, an exclusion of interest on loans secured by rural or agricultural real property, helping farmers in rural areas.
Seems like it. Section 70435 states that gross income will not include 25% of interest received by a qualified lender on qualified real estate loans secured by rural or agricultural real estate.
Who counts as a qualified lender?
It includes banks, credit unions, certified community development financial institutions, and certain federally chartered instrumentalities like the Farm Credit System. What's the practical impact here? This incentivizes lending to rural and agricultural sectors, potentially lowering borrowing costs for farmers and rural businesses. It's a direct support mechanism for those economies by channeling capital into specific, often underserved sectors.
Our next major area is energy policy, balancing traditional and clean. This law contains significant changes to clean energy credits, which seems like a complicated tightrope walk trying to do both things at once.
It absolutely is, and it reflects a nuanced, sometimes, well, seemingly contradictory approach to energy policy. Section 70511 terminates the clean hydrogen production credit on January 1st, 2028.
Cutting that short.
Right, shortening the incentive period from the previous January 4, 2033 date. But the most extensive and complex changes come with Section 70512, regarding the clean electricity production credit.
Okay, what are these sweeping changes? This affects wind and solar big time, right?
Yes. First, the credit terminates for wind and solar facilities placed in service after December 31st, 2025. That's a major deadline. But beyond that, there are significant restrictions related to prohibited foreign entities, or PFEs.
Prohibited foreign entities, meaning?
No credit will be allowed for taxpayers identified as specified foreign entities, or foreign-influenced entities. What makes this truly stand out is the intricate detail in the definitions.
How detailed?
Very. A foreign-influenced entity is defined in Section 7701A51D and includes scenarios like foreign government ownership or control, board membership by foreign officials, significant equity or debt holdings by prohibited foreign entities, or contractual agreements that give control over production, output, or access to data.
Okay, really trying to pin down foreign control.
Exactly. For publicly traded companies, for instance, a 20% aggregate equity holding, or 15% of publicly traded debt, by one or more specified foreign entities can trigger this classification. These complex and detailed definitions demonstrate a very strong legislative intent to limit foreign influence, particularly from covered nations, in U.S. clean energy production.
That's a deep dive into the definitions, very specific. What about the components and materials that go into these clean energy projects? Does that matter too?
Oh, yes. This is where the material assistance from prohibited foreign entities rules come in. The law introduces material assistance cost ratios for qualified facilities and eligible components.
Like solar panels, batteries.
Right. Solar cells, inverters, batteries, wind components, and critical minerals. These ratios specify the minimum percentage of total direct costs that cannot come from prohibited foreign entities.
So domestic content requirements, essentially.
Kind of a not from prohibited entities requirement. These are phased in over time. For qualified facilities, it's 40% starting in 2026, rising to 60% after 2029. For critical minerals, it's 0% until 2030, rising to 50% after 2032.
A ramp up over several years.
Yes. This is essentially a phased-in Buy American or produced domestically or friend-shore requirement for clean energy supply chains. Anti-circumvention rules are also mandated for the Secretary to prevent evasion through contracts, temporary intellectual property transfers, and similar arrangements.
Well, really trying to lock down the supply chain.
It looks that way. These provisions indicate a major policy shift to onshore or friend-shore, the clean energy supply chain, creating both challenges and opportunities for U.S. manufacturers by deliberately limiting the involvement of foreign entities in critical clean energy infrastructure.
And there are even penalties for misstatements about this and denial of credit for leasing arrangements. Getting tough.
Correct. There's a new penalty, Section 6695B, for substantial misstatements on certifications provided by suppliers regarding compliance with these foreign entity rules, with a penalty of up to 10% of the underpayment, or $5,000, and an extended 6-year statute of limitations.
Gives the IRS more time to check.
Right. Also, no credit will be allowed for wind and solar property that is rented or leased to a third party, which prevents certain financial structuring from accessing the credit. These are robust industrial policies, explicitly aiming to secure domestic supply chains for clean energy, reflecting both economic and national security concerns. The Clean Fuel Production Credit under Section 70521 also sees changes. It now prohibits foreign feedstocks.
Fuel has to be made from North American stuff.
Essentially, requiring clean fuel to be exclusively derived from feedstock produced or grown in the United States, Mexico, or Canada, further reinforcing a North American supply chain focus. The Sustainable Aviation Fuel, or SF, credit terminates after September 30, 2025.
Cutting that one short, too.
While the overall Clean Fuel Production Credit is extended until December 31, 2029. Finally, Section 70522 introduces similar restrictions relating to prohibited foreign entities for carbon capture credits.
So, while there are pushes for clean energy, albeit with these significant new restrictions, this law also significantly bolsters fossil fuel production and leasing. This really highlights that balancing act, or maybe conflict you mentioned.
That's right. It's very striking. Section 50101 mandates the Secretary of Interior to conduct a minimum of 4 oil and gas lease sales annually in several states, including Wyoming, Utah, Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, and North Dakota.
Mandating lease sales, what's the practical impact here? It just guarantees more drilling opportunities.
Pretty much. This directly forces a continuation of onshore oil and gas development, potentially increasing domestic production, even as other parts of the law address clean energy. It's a clear legislative directive to maintain and potentially increase fossil fuel extraction. Section 50102 also mandates a minimum of 30 region-wide oil and gas lease sales in the Gulf of America region.
30 sales in the Gulf.
Yes, overriding existing leasing programs if they don't meet this requirement, and make specific provisions for Alaska. This is a clear directive to expand offshore drilling, indicating a robust commitment to traditional energy sources despite concurrent efforts in clean energy. It highlights a dual-track energy strategy.
Or maybe contradictory tracks. And coal, too.
And Section 50103 requires the Bureau of Land Management to act on qualified coal lease applications within 90 days, streamlining that process.
Moving to renewable energy project development on public lands, under Section 5301 and 5302, what kind of fees are being established for these projects? How does the government get paid?
For renewable energy projects, specifically wind and solar, on public lands, the law establishes acreage rents and capacity fees. Capacity fees will be the greater of the acreage rent or a set amount per megawatt of capacity, providing a consistent revenue stream.
Okay, so rent based on land area or power output. And where does the money go?
Beginning January 1st, 2026, revenues from these projects will be distributed 50% to states, 25% to counties, and 25% to a new Renewable Energy Access Fund.
What does this all mean for the public and local communities?
This creates a revenue stream for local and federal governments from renewable energy projects on public lands. It could potentially offset some costs and maybe incentivize host communities to support such development by giving them a direct financial stake. It provides a financial return to the public for the use of public lands for renewable energy generation.
Now, A particularly significant aspect of this law is the rescission of green program funding. The sheer number of programs being defunded here is striking. This looks like a major rollback.
It's a broad and impactful move, yes. Numerous unobligated balances for various green and climate-related programs are being rescinded.
Which ones? Can you give some examples?
It includes significant funds from programs like the Clean School Bus Program, the Low Emissions Electricity Program, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Program, Home Energy Rebate Programs, grants for air pollution monitoring, the Clean Heavy-Duty Vehicle Program,
Wow, that's a lot already.
environmental product labeling for construction materials, environmental and climate justice block grants, Endangered Species Act recovery plans, climate resilience and adaptation funding, the Methane Emission Reduction Program, advanced industrial facilities, emissions reduction, Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, clean ports, clean vehicles. It's a long list.
What's the connection to the bigger picture here? This looks like a major reversal.
This is a significant defunding of numerous climate and environmental initiatives that were previously supported, many from recent legislation. It unequivocally indicates a shift in priorities or a move to streamline spending in these areas, representing a notable policy change in federal environmental and climate strategy. It essentially defunds a significant portion of the green initiatives passed in recent years.
And there's also a new mechanism for environmental reviews that shifts the cost to developers. Speed things up, maybe.
Possibly. Section 600.026 allows project sponsors to pay a fee, specifically 125% of anticipated costs, for federal agencies to prepare environmental assessments or impact statements under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA.
What's the practical impact here? Pay to play for environmental reviews.
It could accelerate project approvals by providing dedicated funding for these reviews, but shifts the cost burden from taxpayers to the developers. It's a way to potentially expedite projects that face environmental review bottlenecks, but at a cost to the private sector. Critics might worry about influence, proponents about efficiency.
Finally, within this energy section, energy dominance financing. What does that mean?
Section 50403 amends the Energy Policy Act of 2005 to expand the types of projects eligible for loan guarantees to increase capacity or output or support or enable the provision of known or undiscovered energy resources.
Broadening support for all kinds of energy, including fossil fuels.
Yes. This broadens the scope for federal support for energy projects, explicitly including traditional ones, further solidifying the dual-track, or maybe all of the above, energy strategy we discussed earlier, aiming to promote all forms of domestic energy production.
Let's move to education and student aid transformations. This is an area that impacts millions of Americans directly. What are the changes to financial aid calculations and student loans?
Well, first, Section 801 expands the list of assets exempt from federal student aid calculations
Exempting what?
to include certain commercial fishing businesses and related expenses, such as fishing vessels and permits owned and controlled by the family. This takes effect July 1st, 2026, for award year 2026-2027 and subsequent years.
Okay, helping fishing families qualify for aid.
Right. It could make federal aid more accessible for families in that industry by more accurately assessing their true financial need, not counting their primary business assets against them.
And what about loan limits and repayment plans? This sounds like a fundamental change is happening here.
It is a complete overhaul for new federal student loans. Section 81001 introduces a complete overhaul of federal student loan repayment for new federal student loans made on or after July 1st, 2026.
An overhaul. What does it look like?
The Secretary of Education shall offer borrowers two repayment plans: a standard 10-year plan with a minimum $50 monthly payment and a new repayment assistance plan.
Okay, standard plan and this new assistance plan. What's the assistance plan do?
Under this plan, the maximum monthly payment is capped at 10% of discretionary income.
Income-based repayment.
Yes, with any remaining balance forgiven after 20 years for undergraduate loans or 25 years for graduate loans of qualifying payments. Importantly, interest accrual is limited under this plan.
And what happens to all the old repayment plans, like IBR, PYE?
They're going away for new borrowers. Existing income contingent and income-based repayment plans other than this new repayment assistance plan are sunset for loans made on or after July 1st, 2026.
What's the real-world effect here? Simpler, maybe better for borrowers?
It seems intended to be simpler. This is a significant simplification of options for new borrowers and could profoundly impact the long-term financial burden of student debt, particularly for those with lower incomes relative to their debt. It provides a clearer, more predictable path to repayment and eventual forgiveness. As part of this, the Secretary must also establish procedures for automatic recertification of income-based repayment plans using IRS data, with an opt-out option for borrowers.
Making it easier to stay on the plan.
Right. This aims to reduce administrative burden for borrowers and help prevent defaults due to missed recertifications.
This sounds like a huge foundational change for the future of student aid repayment. What about Pell Grant eligibility? Are we still focused mainly on traditional college degrees, or is that changing?
What makes this truly stand out is that Section 82001 and 80002 significantly expand Pell Grant eligibility to students enrolled in certain high-quality job training programs.
Pell Grants for job training, not just college.
Exactly. To qualify, these programs must be short-term, between 150 and 600 slot hours over 8 to 15 weeks, provide a recognized post-secondary credential that is stackable and portable, and prepare students for in-demand occupations.
So short-term, skills-focused programs.
Yes. Institutions are also required to provide outcome data such as completion rates, job placement rates, and median earnings compared to other working adults in the area.
Holding the programs accountable for results. When does this start?
This takes effect July 1st, 2026 for award year 2026-2027. This is a significant shift in Pell Grant policy, moving beyond traditional degrees to directly support vocational and skill-based training.
Aligning education funding with jobs.
It explicitly aligns education funding with immediate workforce needs and market demands, signaling a clear policy to prioritize skills development and provide direct pathways to employment for a wider range of students. Section 83003 also addresses the Pell Grant shortfall through certain amendments, ensuring the program's financial stability as it expands its reach.
But there's also a new accountability measure for educational programs themselves, which seems to cut the other way, maybe. Holding schools responsible.
Yes, Section 8401 introduces ineligibility based on low earning outcomes.
Low earning outcomes.
Meaning,
This means that if a program's graduates consistently have low earnings outcomes, falling below certain thresholds, that program could lose its eligibility to participate in federal student aid programs.
what's the practical impact here? Shutting down bad programs.
Potentially. This is a mechanism to hold educational institutions accountable for the economic success of their graduates, potentially leading to the closure of programs that don't deliver a sufficient return on investment for their students. It places a direct economic performance metric on educational programs receiving federal funds, focusing on student outcomes. Lastly, Sections 85001 and 85002 provide some regulatory relief for borrowers by delaying rules relating to borrower defense to repayment and closed school discharges, providing temporary relief or time for review of these policies. Okay, pausing some other rules. Got it. Next up, we have border security, immigration, and government operations. This is always a high-profile area in public discourse. Let's start with the Homeland Security provisions. What's happening with border infrastructure?
Section 9-001 appropriates significant funds for construction, installation, or improvement of new or replacement primary, waterborne, and secondary barriers.
So funding for the wall or barriers?
Yes, as well as access roads and critical barrier system attributes, such as cameras, lights, sensors, and other detection technology. It also covers ground preparation. What does this all mean for border policy? This is a direct mandate and substantial funding for physical border infrastructure.
So prioritizing physical barriers and tech.
Clearly prioritizing the construction and enhancement of barriers and surveillance systems along the U.S. borders. It allocates resources for both physical infrastructure and the technological layers to support it. Section 9-002 also provides appropriations for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, personnel,
More age.
covering hiring, training, retention bonuses, fleet vehicles, and facilities, aiming to bolster frontline capabilities.
And what about detention capacity? That's always a highly discussed topic. More beds.
Section 900003 appropriates funds for not less than 40,000 beds for single adult detention capacity and for family residential centers.
Family centers, too. How are those defined?
The law defines a family residential center as a facility used by DHS to detain family units, including alien children who are not unaccompanied, who are encountered or apprehended by DHS. Aliens may be detained at these centers pending a decision on removal and until removed. The detention standards for single adults are left to the discretion of the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Okay, significant investment in detention infrastructure.
It appears so.
Now, this next part is quite specific on border technology. Section 93004 addresses border security, technology, and screening. What does it say about autonomous systems, AI, at the border?
This is interesting. A key provision here prohibits the use of funds for surveillance towers along the southwest and northern borders that haven't been tested and accepted by CBP to deliver autonomous capabilities.
Okay, but what does autonomous mean here? That's key.
What makes this truly stand out is the very precise legal definition of autonomous in this context. It means a system designed to apply artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision, or other algorithms to accurately detect, identify, classify, and track items of interest in real time, such that the system can make operational adjustments without the active engagement of personnel or continuous human command or control.
Wow. So the system has to identify, track, and adjust itself without a human constantly watching or directing.
That's the definition provided. This is a key piece of information outlining the expected capabilities of advanced surveillance systems and the legislative reliance on AI and machine learning for border security. It means these systems are expected to act and adapt without constant human intervention, representing a significant technological shift.
That's a powerful legal definition, embedded right in the law. What about state and local assistance for border security? Are states getting money for this?
Section 9005 appropriates funds for state and local governments for border security activities.
What can they spend it on? Building their own walls.
Eligible activities include the construction of border walls or barriers, ground preparation, detection and interdiction of illicit substances, and unlawfully entered aliens who have committed crimes, and the transfer of such aliens to DHS.
But can they enforce immigration law themselves?
There's a crucial limitation. States cannot exercise immigration or border security authorities reserved exclusively for the federal government, ensuring federal preeminence in this area.
Moving to governmental affairs provisions, under Section 90101, the FEHB Protection Act of 2025 focuses on improving the federal employees' health benefits, or FEHB program. What's the main goal here? Cracking down on fraud.
That seems to be the focus. This act requires the Director of the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM, to issue regulations and implement processes within 180 days to verify qualifying life events and family member eligibility for the FEHB program.
So making sure dependents are actually eligible.
Right. It also mandates a comprehensive audit of family member eligibility over a 3-year period and a process for disenrollment of ineligible individuals within 180 days. What's the practical impact here? This aims to reduce fraud and ensure proper enrollment in federal employee health benefits, ensuring the program's integrity and efficiency by tightening controls and verifying eligibility. Section 90102 also provides appropriations for the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee, or PRC, ensuring its continued operation.
Keeping an eye on pandemic spending. Okay. Now let's turn to immigration and law enforcement matters. What are the key appropriations for the Department of Justice in this area?
Section 101 provides significant funding for immigration and law enforcement efforts, available until September 30, 2034, so long-term funding.
For what specifically?
Key uses include expanding immigration court capacity, though not to exceed 800 immigration judges by November 1, 2028. It also funds combating drug trafficking, prosecuting immigration matters such as gang-related crimes, child trafficking, unlawful voting by aliens, and handling litigation against the federal government.
And paying states back for incarcerating undocumented immigrants.
Yes, the law provides for reimbursement to states and political subdivisions for costs of incarcerating undocumented criminal aliens who meet specific criteria, such as having entered without inspection, being in removal proceedings, or having violated non-immigrant status. This is a robust investment in law enforcement capabilities across several key areas related to immigration and crime.
And finally, a very different but equally important area, radiation exposure compensation. This affects people exposed during nuclear testing and uranium mining, right? This has a long and complex history.
It does, and this law takes significant steps to address it. Section 102(1) extends the fund for radiation exposure compensation. Section 102(2) expands eligibility criteria for individuals affected by atmospheric nuclear testing.
The downwinders.
Right, including those physically present in an affected area for at least 1 year between September 24, 1944 and November 6, 1962. The definition of affected area is amended to include specified counties in Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Texas, Utah, and Washington.
Expanding the map significantly.
Yes. For leukemia claims, the compensation amount is set at $100,000 if specific conditions are met, and previous payments haven't been made.
And what about uranium mining claims? That's another group historically affected by radiation exposure.
Section 102.43 expands geographical and occupational eligibility for uranium miners and millers to include more states, such as Idaho, North Dakota, Oregon, and Texas, and also extends eligibility to core drillers.
More workers covered and more illnesses.
Critically, it adds renal cancer and other chronic renal diseases to the list of compensable conditions for miners.
And there's even a new section for Manhattan Project waste, which addresses an even older legacy from WWII.
Yes, Section 1002 establishes a new section for compensation claims relating to Manhattan Project waste. Compensation is set at $50,000 for living affected individuals, or tiered amount for survivors, for specified diseases including cancers of the lung, breast, stomach, liver, pancreas, and others.
Who's eligible for that?
Eligibility is for individuals whose primary residence, place of employment, or school was in a designated affected area, which the Attorney General will define based on waste exposure. What makes this truly stand out is that this is a long overdue and significant expansion of compensation for individuals affected by the historical legacy of nuclear weapons development.
Acknowledging harm done decades ago.
Right, including specific diseases and affected geographical areas. It's a profound recognition of the long-term health impacts on communities and workers associated with these historical projects, offering much-needed relief and attempting to address past injustices.
Let's move to agricultural support and food security, starting with nutrition programs. What's happening with the Thrifty Food Plan, which is the basis for calculating SNAP benefits or food stamps?
Section 1101 reevaluates the Thrifty Food Plan. The plan is now defined by specific food items and quantities from the 2021 USDA report, and critically, future changes are only allowed pursuant to specific constrained paragraphs.
What's the practical impact here, locking in the 2021 calculation?
It essentially sets a baseline for calculating food assistance based on that 2021 report, and future adjustments will be highly constrained, potentially impacting benefit levels and how quickly they can adapt to changing food costs or dietary guidelines. It locks in a specific methodology for a period, limiting the Secretary's discretion for future updates.
And Section 1102 also modifies SNAP work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents. What's the change in scope there, exempting more people?
It clarifies exemptions. Individuals under 18 or over 65 and those medically certified as physically or mentally unfit are now explicitly exempt. This narrows the scope of work requirements compared to some interpretations, potentially increasing access to SNAP benefits for vulnerable populations by removing some previous hurdles. It's a clarification that should make it easier for certain groups to maintain eligibility.
There are significant fiscal changes coming to state payment error rates and administrative cost sharing for SNAP. This feels like a carrot and stick approach to get states to cut down on errors.
It absolutely does. A significant fiscal change is found in Sections 10105 and 10106. For states with payment error rates less than 6%, the federal share for SNAP allotments will be 100%.
The feds pay the whole benefit cost.
Right, meaning a 0% state share beginning in fiscal year 2028. That's the carrot. However, for states with very high error rates, 1.5 times the error rate at or above 20% in fiscal years 2025 or 2026, the implementation of other payment changes will be delayed until fiscal years 2029 or 2030, respectively.
So a penalty for high error rates. And what about administrative costs?
That's the stick, perhaps. What makes this truly stand out is that while it creates a strong incentive for states to reduce SNAP payment errors, it also shifts a greater burden of administrative costs to the states in the long run. The federal share for state administrative costs changes from 50% down to 25% for fiscal year 2027 and each fiscal year thereafter.
Wow, cutting the federal share of running the program in half, that could hit state budgets hard.
It could potentially impact state budgets significantly, yes.
And other smaller changes in this nutrition area.
Section 10107 extends the National Education and Obesity Prevention Grant Program only through fiscal year 2025, so short-term funding there. And Section 10108 amends the Food and Nutrition Act to specify that only specific categories of aliens are eligible for SNAP benefits, which tightens eligibility criteria for non-citizens.
Moving to commodity programs for farmers, what's happening with base acre reallocation for farms? Updating payment bases.
Yes, that's the idea. Section 1201 establishes a process for farms to reallocate base acres for covered commodities based on a 5-year average of planted and prevented from planting acreage from the 2019-2023 crop years, plus an allowance for non-covered commodities.
So, based on what they actually planted recently.
Right. Farms with no recent plantings of covered commodities are ineligible. What's the practical impact here? This aims to update base acres to reflect current planting patterns, which can directly affect future commodity program payments and a farm's eligibility for federal support. It modernizes the baseline for support, ensuring it's tied to recent agricultural activity.
Now, under crop insurance and price revenue support, the law extends two major farm safety net programs: price loss coverage, PLC, and agriculture risk coverage, ARC. What are the changes there?
Sections 1 to 304 and 1 to 305 extend the PLC and ARC programs through the 2031 crop year, so providing some longer-term certainty. Notably for ARC, the benchmark revenue coverage is adjusted upwards from 70% for 2014-2024 to 90% for 2025-2031.
Increasing the ARC guarantee level, that's significant.
Yes, providing a more robust safety net for farmers enrolled in ARC. Section 10306 updates specific reference prices for a wide range of commodities.
The prices that trigger payments.
Exactly, including wheat, corn, grain sorghum, barley, oats, upland cotton, rice, soybeans, peanuts, and various oil seeds, as well as dry peas, lentils, chickpeas, wool, mohair, and honey. There are specific numbers listed, like $6.87 weight for dry peas, $14.30 from lentils, 390 times for peanuts.
What does this all mean for farmers? Why do these specific prices matter so much?
These specific price updates directly impact the safety net for farmers. They determine when federal support kicks in and provide a clearer floor for their income. They are critical figures that directly influence farm financial planning and risk management. Section 1A0307 also authorizes the Secretary to make cotton storage payments for upland and extra-long staple cotton for the 2026-2031 crop years.
And how is the sugar program being addressed? That's always a politically sensitive commodity with lots of lobbying.
Section 10309 mandates the Secretary to reallocate forecasted shortfalls in raw cane sugar tariff rate quotas. It also mandates a study on the domestic refined sugar industry and allows the Secretary to establish additional terms and conditions for refined sugar imports based on the study's findings.
What makes this truly stand out? Still trying to balance domestic producers and users.
Absolutely. This reflects a continuous balancing act between supporting domestic sugar producers and meeting the needs of industrial users, all while navigating complex international trade agreements. It's a delicate economic and political balance that gets revisited often. Section 10310 also appropriates $16 million for various dairy activities, including mandatory biennial surveys of dairy production costs and product yield information, and a study on dairy policy, aiming to provide better data for future policy decisions in that sector.
Moving to disaster assistance programs, Section 10401 and 10402 deal with supplemental agricultural disaster assistance. What's new for livestock indemnity payments, or LIP, and other forms of disaster relief for farmers?
For LIP, payment rates are set at 100% of market value for losses due to predation.
Higher payment if it's a predator loss.
Right, and 75% for losses due to adverse weather or disease. Crucially, additional payments are introduced for unborn livestock death losses incurred on or after January 1, 2024 due to adverse conditions, up to 85% of the lowest weight class payment rate.
Covering unborn calves or lambs lost in storms, for instance.
Exactly. There are also specific payments for farm-raised fish losses due to piscivorous birds, with a minimum rate of $600 per acre. What does this all mean for farmers and ranchers? These provisions expand and clarify the financial support available when facing losses from natural disasters and wildlife, providing a more comprehensive safety net. It addresses specific vulnerabilities within the agricultural sector, acknowledging the diverse risks producers face.
Under federal crop insurance, Sections 10501, 10502, and 10504 adjust various premium subsidy rates. How does this impact farmers, making insurance cheaper?
Generally, yes. For example, individual yield or revenue coverage, aggregated across multiple commodities, now has a 90% subsidy. The overall premium subsidy rate for certain policies is also increased from 65% to 80%.
Higher subsidies. What's the connection to the bigger picture?
These changes make crop insurance more affordable for farmers, encouraging greater participation and improving their overall risk management strategies. It's a significant investment in agricultural stability by making the primary risk management tool more accessible. Section 10503 also provides additional administrative and operating expense subsidies to approved insurance providers for eligible contracts, starting in the 2026 reinsurance year, which helps support the companies that deliver the crop insurance program.
And there's a specific pilot program for the poultry industry related to avian flu. That's a very targeted response to a recurring problem.
What makes this truly stand out is Section 10507, which mandates a pilot program for poultry producers to manage risks associated with highly pathogenic avian influenza. The program will be conducted in top poultry-producing states. This is a targeted response to a specific industry vulnerability, acknowledging the immense economic impact of disease outbreaks like avian flu on a crucial part of our food supply and developing tailored insurance solutions.
Finally, we have other agricultural programs. What are some of the varied investments here? It sounds like a catch-all.
It is, but with targeted funding to support various niche agricultural sectors. We're seeing increased funding for specialty crop block grants for $85 million for fiscal years 2018-2025 and $100 million for fiscal year 2026.
Helping fruit and vegetable growers.
Right. There's sustained investment in the Organic Production and Market Data Initiative with $10 million for fiscal years 2026-2031, supporting the growth of the organic sector. And significant annual support for dairy business innovation initiatives with $233 million annually for fiscal years 2026-2030, with specific amounts for innovation, processing, and marketing, and technical assistance.
Lots for dairy innovation.
Yes. Section 1 and 603B adds $3 million for fiscal year 2026 for the Sheep Production and Marketing Grant Program. And Section 1 and 603C extends the Pima Agriculture Cotton Trust Fund through 2031. These are all about fostering growth and innovation in specific, often underserved areas of the agricultural economy.
Our final major topic for today is a very specific but politically significant unemployment benefits adjustment. What's the goal here? Cutting benefits for some people.
Section 733001 introduces a policy aimed at ending unemployment payments to jobless millionaires. It explicitly states that no federal funds may be used to make unemployment compensation payments to individuals whose wages during their base period are equal to or exceed $1 million.
So if you earned over $1 million before losing your job, no unemployment checks.
That's what it says. State agencies are required to establish procedures to verify wage eligibility by assessing claimant income to the degree possible. Furthermore, states must require repayment of any amounts received by ineligible individuals under this new rule.
This feels like a clear policy statement, doesn't it? What's the deeper implication here? Is this about saving money or making a point?
What makes this truly stand out is that this is a clear policy statement targeting high-income individuals and ensuring that unemployment benefits are reserved for those with lower incomes. It reflects a political choice regarding the purpose and beneficiaries of unemployment insurance, shifting its focus more strictly toward providing a safety net for those with genuine financial need.
Defining who the program is for.
Exactly. It is a definitive move to prevent unintended beneficiaries from accessing a program designed for economic hardship, reflecting a specific philosophical stance on social welfare programs.
Wow, we've just covered an immense range of topics from a single legislative document. I mean, from the far reaches of space and the depths of the ocean to your family's dinner table and your child education, Public Law 11921 truly impacts almost every aspect of American life.
Indeed. It's staggering when you lay it all out. We've seen a clear push in national security with massive investments in advanced defense and space exploration.
Right.
A complex recalibration of social programs like Medicaid and student aid with new requirements and simplified repayment options.
Big shifts there.
Significant shifts in tax policy for individuals and businesses, both cuts and changes. And that fascinating tension, maybe contradiction, in energy policy balancing traditional and clean sources, or maybe funding both.
Yeah, that push and pull was really evident.
This deep dive highlights how interconnected these different sectors really are, and how a single piece of legislation can drive such diverse and far-reaching changes. It truly challenges us, and you listening, to look beyond headlines and understand the granular details that shape our world.
And as we conclude, here's a provocative thought for you to consider, building on some of those details we saw. As technology like AI and autonomous systems become increasingly integrated into government functions, we saw it defined for border security surveillance. But think about healthcare administration, determining eligibility for federal aid. How will our legal frameworks adapt? How do we define accountability, ensure equity, and manage the ethical implications of these powerful new tools when they're embedded in law? What new questions will we need to ask as more decisions are made not by humans, but by algorithms defined in legislative text? Something to think about.